Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast, hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and as always, plenty of entertainment. I hope you're all well and enjoyed the extra long weekend of the May bank holiday. I spent it travelling to the US for the Ironman World Championships. I'm telling you, it's a fair old trek from Galway to St. George, and I'm just about coming around from the travel. But I am so excited to be here as part of the announcing team. Still pinching myself that I'm actually here. We went for a spin through the infamous Snow Canyon and wow, just wow. It is incredibly magnificent, stunning with some serious climbing. And of course, what goes up must come down. The descent is fabulous. And I was only sitting in the back seat of the car. The athletes are going to have loads of fun out on that course. There's a busy schedule of events for the next few days and lots of excitement building for race day Saturday. I can't wait to start meeting the athletes and embracing the festival-like atmosphere of the World Championships. I am not sorry for the photos and general Utah takeover on my socials all this week. Closer to home, I'm delighted to have been selected to race at the Mondello 24 cycle on June 18th and 19th as part of the Cycling Ireland Women's Commission team of 8. I'll be double jobbing as both event MC and cyclist for the event, and I'm really looking forward to meeting the team of riders and having some fun on and off the track over the coming weeks. If you are in Dublin on Sunday, May 15th, be sure to check out the Athletics Ireland 5K as part of the 2022 race series being hosted in partnership with Sports Travel International. There are 3 events in the race series taking place, with a 5K in May, the 10K in June and a 10 mile in July. Be sure to check out the details on www.trytalkingsport.com and get yourself registered to take part in 1, 2 or all 3 events. The countdown is on to Lough Cuatra Castle Triathlon on May 28th and 29th in Galway. If you haven't signed up yet, be sure to get registered sooner than later. Use the code TTS252022 on www.castleraceseries.com to get a 25% discount across all races at the event. There are lots of races for adults and juniors alike to enjoy across the festival of racing. Finally, be sure to keep an eye on the Nuasan socials over the coming days. They are launching a new webinar series that will definitely be of interest. If you are browsing their website and fancy purchasing some products, use the code TTS15 on www.nuasan.com to get 15% discount. Now to this week's episode with Mick Clohisey, who is a household name in sport in Ireland, especially in running circles, and in more recent times in marathon running circles. The Raheny Shamrocks Olympian has represented Ireland on the international stage for many years, including representing Ireland at major cross-country championships 14 times. His best international performance saw him finish 22nd in the 2017 World Championships in London. Taking up running at a young age, he has never strayed too far from lacing up his spikes and his runners, despite a breakaway from the sport in his mid-20s. A 2-time national marathon champion, taking the 2018 title at the Dublin Marathon and the 2021 title at the Belfast Marathon, whilst also winning this race outright, he is no stranger to being crowned a national champion. He has 11 national titles to his name, the most recent of these, his second at the 10k distance at the Great Ireland Run in March of 2022. Hampered by a niggling injury over the past few years, the pandemic brought about an opportunity for Mick to step back and take time out to get the strains and, at the time, an unknown stress fracture healed. He is now getting back into his stride and is on track to being back at full tilt in time for this year's Dublin Marathon in October, where he will aim to defend his National Marathon Championship title and go faster than his marathon PB of 2:13.19 set in Dublin in 2019. With a young son at home and a new arrival due in July, Mick loves spending time outdoors with his family, with his running clients for whom he is a coach, or with his club mates on a run, or more likely competing against them in a race. The key to his success? Consistency in training. Getting the balance right in terms of training, racing, lifestyle and having fun. Mick, alongside his coach Dick Hooper, work in partnership to deliver the results we consistently see Mick deliver. And although not every race has gone his way, when Mick Clohisey is standing on the start line of a race, you know you are going to see some superb running and a great result. Now go grab a cuppa and enjoy the show. Mick Clohisey, the man in green known as the Claw. Welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast. I am very excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks very much, Joanne. Delighted to be on. Thanks for inviting me on.
The first time I asked you to be on the show was back in 2019 when you ran to victory in the Fields of Athenry in Galway. And it has taken us until 2022, after the Great Ireland Run, where you were crowned 10K national champion for the second time, before we could get this show on the road. So what have you been up to for the past 2 years?
Yeah, so Athenry, one of my annual pilgrimages on Stephen's Day. I've gone down there just maybe 10 times or something. So yeah, no, I remember that day before everything stopped. Then a few months later with the pandemic and that. So yeah, I've been trying to stay fit. A few injury issues have come on board as well, actually, during this period. Also have my 2.5-year-old son Paul as well, has kept me busy. So yeah, I've been training away with some periods of injury, which I'm hopefully over now. I had some fairly bad enough injury issues. I can go into them if you want in a bit, but thankfully I'm back on track now, trying to build the fitness back and get back to where I was with on my running career, because I suppose the last couple of years have been a little bit messy from obviously the pandemic front, and then the few injury issues I've picked up. But no, everything else has been good. And my coaching business as well, which I set up about 2017, I think I started my own coaching business. That's kind of grown as well. And actually through the pandemic, even though a lot of our group stuff was kind of stalled, etc., online type stuff grew a lot. And, we're coming up with different ideas to keep people busy and active. So that's grown a lot. And now thankfully everything's kind of back to normal now with the group sessions and everything I do. So that's kind of my main livelihood is my coaching business, along with my, my own running, which, might make it the odd few bob here and there. But the coaching is the main income.
So you've had a busy couple of weeks. You did the Sonia O'Sullivan 10 mile in Cove there back just a couple of weeks ago. And then you went on and you won the 10K national championships in the Great Ireland Run. And last weekend, you won the Battle of Clontarf 10 mile road race. So you must be feeling pretty good now coming off the back of those 3 great results. Talk to me about returning to running after being plagued with those injuries.
Yeah, so I've raced, as you said, the last few weeks. And I missed racing big time. And I suppose also through the pandemic, because I was used to racing regularly every 2 to 3 weeks. When I'm even in a marathon build-up, I love to dip into 10Ks, half marathons and stuff, just to keep myself kind of in tune and keep myself sharp. So the few races I've stepped back into now, I am up to where I was beforehand, fitness-wise. The injury has taken a little bit of, obviously you lose fitness when you're injured. It's not as if, like, going back, I've had an injury on and off for over a year, which I didn't get to the bottom of, or I didn't look out of stubbornness probably on my part. I didn't go down the route which I probably knew I'd have to, which was in the end getting cortisone shots. I had this osteitis pubis. I'd say a lot of athletes might have heard of it. It's kind of inflammation around the whole pelvic pubic symphysis area. It's manageable to some extent, but my running started to suffer. I couldn't do the really hard, intense stuff. It's kind of a gradual soreness that would come on around the groin areas and that while I was running, especially for the marathon type long stuff. And you'd be sore the next day or whatever if you'd done a hard session. So I had that on and off for, I suppose, the guts of a year. I also had a stress fracture, which I didn't realise, that showed up on the scan, which I eventually got, which I just thought was a glute strain, but it turned out I had a stress fracture as well. So I suppose it was my own stubbornness thinking that I could get myself back through strength and conditioning, but it came a point where I had to try and sort this. And I did run the Belfast Marathon last October and I managed to get the win. Now, it was a slower time in that, but I was running injured, so to speak. But some Nurofen and a little bit of rest beforehand helped settle things enough to get me through it. But, I couldn't keep going on like that. And when I did eventually get the scan, showed up, I had an adductor tear in my adductor tendon, micro tears, as well as this going on. So it was Gerard Hartman, who's, you might have heard, he's well known in triathlon circles definitely as well, who was very, very good for me, because he kind of put me on the road to seeing a sports doctor and stuff that I was kind of putting off. And I suppose I had a lot of trust in Ger over his, I suppose, he's been seen it all and he's been at the top with so many athletes. So look, I could have got this sorted a long time ago, but he kind of pushed me to say, look, take the hit now, get this. And thankfully that was going back a few months now. I got the injections, took a bit of time off, and I'm just starting to build again, and everything feels good. I think it's more as well as the mindset as well. You can get a bit casual when you've been injured for a while, kind of out of the routine of the hard, proper training, and then your fitness obviously starts to drop off a bit. But it's coming back, and the few races there in the last few weeks have definitely helped get me back in that zone. But there's a lot of work to do.
You definitely looked very comfortable crossing the finish line at the Great Ireland Run 10K in the Phoenix Park a couple of weeks ago. It looked like you were just out for a Sunday jog.
Look, maybe I seem like that, but I did find it tough now. I don't know whether it's the sunglasses can hide the expression on the face sometimes, I think. But, you know, it's never easy. You know, maybe I felt good physically. You know, my injury has settled, which is the main thing. But I do know myself, my fitness is still a bit of work to do. But I think the few races can give you confidence then as well to push on. And it's that mindset of getting into that zone of pushing yourself again. And I think there's nothing like racing to do that and to get that, just get you out of the comfort zone because you can settle and train and think you're getting back to where I was. But the races are definitely what I need. But as in saying that, you can't go out and race every single weekend. You need to step back and put in a block of training. But I kind of use them as a springboard to get me going and get the feel for it again.
So are you feeling good now? Like, how's your body and mind for racing?
The body feels great. It hasn't felt any better. Like, the injury seems to have settled. So I just have to be careful as well. You know, these things, it could come back, this injury. That's the kind of nature of it. And I suppose when I move up into marathon training, which, you know, I haven't been doing a massive amount yet, and it's likely Dublin in October will be my main goal, because Europeans are in the summer, but I obviously don't have the time for that, and I haven't qualified, so very slim unless there's a wild card chance of getting on the team, but that's very slim chance at the moment. So I'd be looking at Dublin. So it just means I'll have to gradually ramp things up as the months go on through the summer, and see how the body reacts. But it's getting into that, get that work ethic back, and, you know, knowing how to push and how to be disciplined as well in all parts of lifestyle. As I said, when you're injured, you can get a little bit casual about everything. So and that's from my own perspective, and I suppose it's in my nature. Sometimes I can get a bit lazy when I have had the opportunity. So just getting back into where I was, but it will come. I feel confident.
So how do you zone in on the discipline and staying motivated? Like, if there's days where you just don't want to get out of bed to go for that 10K run, do you think back to the days when, geez, when I was injured, I couldn't do this, and this is part of the motivation to get moving?
Exactly. Yeah. No, like it's true. Like, even today, I was out for 10 miles and still operating miles and the old fashioned.
You say it so casually. I was out for 10 miles. It's like me saying I was out on 100K on the bike.
It wasn't. I think even sometimes people on meeting people every few days with my coaching and stuff, and they think, oh, you're out, you know, loving every run. But it isn't. It's like everything, you know, if you're doing it all the time, there are days where you don't want to do it. Like, and it's not that you don't respect it or whatever, but it's like any sort of hard training that you can't always want to do. Or maybe there are people who always, but now today I was tired because I'd done the race 2 days ago, and I had a few things on this morning. That meant I went out a bit later in the afternoon, and training in the morning for me now seems to be my best time, kind of mid-morning. So I wasn't really in the humor doing my run today, but I got it done. So I think it's just that you become so used to it that you just do it, even though beforehand you might be, you know, it's kind of playing on your mind. But once it's done, it's done. And then when you're out there, you know, as everyone says, once you're out there, you're loving it to some extent. You know, there are times when you just want to run to finish, but I think most athletes can relate to that there's days, but I actually find sometimes my harder days, I find to be able to do them, you know, they come to me easier, so to speak. You know, if I'm doing a hard session or a hard long run, I can get into that zone. But it's the recovery easy days, logging the miles, that can be the hardest, because you're tired, and it's just kind of, I suppose you're not as focused as when you're doing a session, so to speak. You know, if it's a hard 20-mile run in marathon training up to Phoenix Park and I'm totally zoned in, that feels easier than the next day when I'm going out for recovery 7 or 8 miles. So it's funny how it works, but you just kind of get it done. I suppose a lot of athletes are the same, you know, it just comes second nature, and you might kind of doubt yourself for a bit, but you go out and do it, and that's it. And as you said, afterwards, you're always glad that you've stuck to your guns, as they say.
And how do you look after yourself after some of those hard sessions, or say like the 10-mile run on Sunday? How did you recover to ensure that, you know, you're protecting your body from injury and making sure that it's ready to go for the next day, so you can keep continuing to train and to perform well?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be one for overdoing, you know, the extra recovery stuff like stretching and, you know, foam rolling and all this stuff. I kind of have a simple approach. Like even stuff like putting my legs in the sea is something that I've always done. Yesterday I managed to get out to Portmarnock, and I'm quite close to Dollyman Strand here, but sometimes I go out to Portmarnock as well. And I was out there yesterday, and I put my legs in and just stood in the sea for a bit. And at the moment, a lot of people know the sea is actually probably still at its near its coldest. Well, it's probably starting to warm up, but you know, it's ideal for recovery at the moment. I think that helps. You know, you could be a placebo thing, but you definitely feel after having your legs in the sea that there's some sort of energy gone back into them and just the blood flow. Obviously I try to eat well after a hard run, and, you know, and try and get as much rest as I can. But I think over the years, I suppose now having a 2-year-old son and that, you know, sometimes recovery can be neglected a bit, but I think you can overthink these things in some ways as well. And I mean, sleep is obviously is really important, but I think if you think too much of what you could do, and, you know, you can really play on your mind too much. But I've tried other things, like I've tried cryotherapy a fair bit. There's a place in Dublin city centre that I've used on and off. Now, it's hard to know, you know, it's probably scientifically they say it works. So you go in and it's 30 seconds or 3 minutes, whatever it is, and you come out and the chamber, and look, it's hard to know. It does something. I don't know if you have any knowledge on it yourself, but I'm sure for the real endurance type things, it is beneficial. But I've tried that stuff, and I think any of these things, they're not going to do you any harm. So
and what about your fueling as well? Probably not taking on much fuel when you're doing a 10K or maybe a 10 mile. But say your post-race fueling, like, do you eat particular types of food, or how do you get your muscles to recover through food, or is that something that you even consider?
Yeah, again, I wouldn't be over the top with this kind of side of things. Like, I'd be the kind of simple approach, like protein of any sort after a hard effort. You know, I've gotten better at that over the years. I think when I was younger, I was probably quite blasé about trying to get, you know, if I was getting a good meal in after. But I wouldn't have gotten, you know, I wouldn't be fussy. You know, if there's whatever the situation is, like, I mean, if I can get some scrambled eggs in, or, you know what I mean, it's not, I'm going to have to get a certain thing in. I think I have a good balanced diet. Now, I enjoy pizza the night before the 10 miler on Monday there. And I think there's nothing wrong with a pizza sometimes if it's decent. It's good carbohydrates, you know. And look, all athletes are different. I might have a more laxed approach sometimes, but I think I have a balance with it as well. Like, I like to have a few pints here and there or whatever. And I think it's trying to learn the balance, because I've seen as well from coaching, and I'm not coaching people at an elite level, just maybe even people new to running, or from the park runs, or, you know, they could be running 3-hour marathons plus, but sometimes people can get over analyzing everything that they're doing, and it takes a lot of the fun out of it, I think. And the one thing I think is, if you are training hard, you can allow yourself a few little luxuries as well, but keeping it in balance, you know what I mean? And then you enjoy it. So look, I'm just speaking for myself. I know there's other athletes that I'd be against, and they'd be a lot stricter than I am with it in all that regard. But I think over the years, I've probably tried to find my balance that works for me. And, you know, because I do find it hard to live that really regimental athlete lifestyle. I've tried it sometimes in the past. It just hasn't worked with me, with my own personality or whatever. So I think I have a good balance. But as I say, I need to stay in check with being disciplined to push on and get back to where I was.
It's such an individual thing as well, really, isn't it? Because you mentioned there, you know, about you're not coaching elites, but everyone in their own head thinks that they're an elite to a certain extent, you know, and everyone wants to get the best out of themselves. But really, sometimes we just have to find the right balance between doing the hard training, doing the hard partying, or the hard food eating, or whatever it is. But actually, we have to live a little, because
exactly.
For me, this is about being healthy, having fun, being active, and a whole social side of things. But I think your approach is actually quite interesting, because you mentioned earlier that you were really stubborn about not getting your injury fixed or sorted, or not going down the road to get it done. But yet the vibe I'm kind of getting from you is that you're quite dialed into everything, but yet you're very fluid and very laid back with your approach. That yes, it's a very serious sport and serious in how you take it, but that your approach, you're able to almost step outside it and kind of see the bigger picture and very holistic kind of approach to the whole thing.
Yeah, I suppose over the years, I've kind of, from the outside, maybe that's the way it looks. And maybe I don't realize that that's the way I'm operating kind of. But yeah, as I said, I've tried some of the more intense, spells of training. And maybe before I became a father and got, things change in your perspective of, in life and that. So I do try to step out of it and switch back in. But it is getting that balance. And as I said, with the injuries and that, I probably got a bit casual and I could get away with doing a few low key races. And I suppose then if you keep going it that way, without really getting myself back into the zone, I could risk not getting back on track to where I feel I can, especially in the marathon the next few years. I'd like to think I can push on and, get some really more good results and, lower my PB. And I definitely feel I can, but that will take me, I suppose, getting back into that zone of being a bit more disciplined. But as I said, stepping in and out of it it works for me as well. And I don't think I could go down that road of just zoning everything else out. And it's just not me. And then there's an element with athletes that can be selfish as well. And it can just take over. And I don't think it's for me, I just wouldn't want to go into that kind of zone. So like it's trying to get the best out of myself while, not over. I wouldn't be going off now for a month or two on my own training in the Pyrenees or something, I've done them things in the past. I don't think now it's part of my kind of routine going forward. So but yeah, it's an interesting, as you said, it's an individual thing. All athletes at different all levels have different ways to get the best out of themselves. Yeah.
So talk to me now about being a multiple national champion across multiple disciplines. It's not just the 10K, it's not just 10 mile, it's not just half marathon, it's not just marathon. I mean, and it's cross country as well. You've got titles across the board. How do you manage the diversity of the distances, I guess, and maybe even the diversity between the road racing and the cross country racing, that you can switch it up in distances and in pace to be able to race well across all of those distances?
Yeah, it's like I've been lucky that I've had a good, I suppose, progression through the years. Like the marathon, I suppose, now has taken over as my main focus. I moved up to the marathon in 2015, so 7 years ago or so. And prior to that, cross country, 10K was probably my main distances. So cross country would be a lot of the 10K. So my cross country has suffered since I became more of a marathon runner. Like I haven't been as strong on the country in recent years, and that's a kind of natural enough thing. When the more marathons you do, you start to lose the sharpness over that, and that discipline it's a different type of running as well. Twisty, turny kind of. So for a few years, I probably was a lot stronger at cross country, and I don't think I'm as strong now. But on the roads, I think I've become more efficient running on the roads, especially over the longer distances. But it's been a kind of gradual progression, I think. And the marathon obviously is beneficial then for endurance when you're dipping back into the shorter stuff. But anything under 10K for me, like 5K is nearly two. Like I don't know, my 5K, I've dipped into 5Ks and I've done okay sometimes. Then other times I just don't have the sharpness for it. So, it's very hard to try and be at all the different disciplines. I think the more I get into the marathon now, again, I have to accept I mightn't get any faster over the shorter. But like I still feel over 10K I could do, especially on the road, and that I can put in some good solid times, but it would never be at too, not like what some of the really top middle distance guys in Ireland would be running. So but I've been lucky that I've dipped into all the events, and it's, as I said, it's something I've liked over the years to race kind of regularly, especially in recent years in a marathon build up. Dipping into races has kind of kept me sharp, kept me focused, whereas I know other athletes like to go off on a marathon block and just train and come out and run the marathon, and that works as well. I always think, just for myself, the races keep me tuned in. But that might change in the years ahead. Like, I'm not sure, even after coming out back from these injuries, maybe I won't be able to race as regularly if I am doing the marathons in the, you know, especially with long runs and stuff. So that could change a bit. But yeah, I'm lucky I've kind of managed to pick up nationals over a lot of the disciplines, and it'd be nice for me. I suppose it's nice to thing for me to have to say, you know, I've won a fair few over the various disciplines. So yeah, so I think as I said, the marathon is my main focus moving forward, and Dublin in October is the nationals again, the national championship. So that would be definitely one that I'd be aiming for.
You mentioned you've become more efficient running on the road. What does that mean?
I just think my style of running suits better for straight, kind of smooth running on tarmac. I'm not sure the technical how to explain it really, but like cross country is a lot of chopping and changing and, you know, twist and turning, and I was definitely more suitable to that for a while. Then as I started to build into doing long runs and marathon stuff, I think my natural ability just to be smooth over long periods of time started to develop, and I've felt it myself. My style of running has changed. Hard to explain exactly, but just it's a natural kind of thing. I don't feel as comfortable maybe on the cross country, and it probably is as well as the body gets older. I'm in my mid-30s now, so, you know, I'm not as flexible on the country or whatever as I used to be. And then like the track, I dip into the track a bit, maybe 10,000 meters or whatever, but the odd 5K, 5,000. But I train a fair bit on the track, but I wouldn't be as strong a track runner as a road runner. And I just love nice, smooth, long stretches or whatever on a road where I can just get moving. And I suppose it's just a natural kind of progression into this type of running. So, and a lot of marathon running is just pure rhythm and consistency, you know, whereas where you're actually, I suppose, within yourself for a lot of the marathon, you know, as opposed to cross country, and that where you're helter skelter, you know, on edge, which I still can manage to do a bit of, but it's changed slightly over the years.
So what is it about the marathon that you enjoy? Is it the long straight roads? Is it the tarmac that you're on, or maybe the bounce you get from the road? Is it the big crowds of people around you? Is it being able to just get into your head for 26.2 miles? Or maybe you don't want to get into your head for 26.2 miles, but what is it? Why the marathon?
Yeah, like going back when I was younger, my coach over the years, Dick Cooper, he's very well known in athletics and sport in Ireland through the years. Like, he won the Dublin Marathon 3 times. The first Dublin Marathon, he won it 3 times to the Olympics. And Dick has been with me since I was in my mid-teens. And Dick was a marathon runner, obviously. So I kind of, and my father as well, ran marathon. So I always had this thing at a marathon. I remember going in to watch my dad when I was young and actually finishing the last mile with him in the Dublin Marathon. I don't think he'd be allowed to do that now, but I was able to jump in then and cross the line with him back in, I was probably about 15 or something. But so I always had this kind of thing pushing me towards it. And then I remember Dick saying, even in my early 20s, that he saw something in me that he thought, you know, I'd be suited to the marathon. He could see the endurance space. And I was never one for the, you know, I didn't have that natural speed for middle distance, you know, your real track speed. Like, I just didn't have that. I could work on my track side of things and shorter distance, but I would never have that raw speed, you know, to really push on the track. So it took a few years out in my mid-20s where I suppose I just kind of stalled a bit on my progression, and then came back, and then the marathon came on the agenda again. So I was in 2015, so I was 28 or 9 or so when I actually moved up to the marathon. And yeah, since then I've just gotten to love the whole event. I think I suppose the marathon is a bittersweet event. It's like discipline of Ironman or triathlon, you know, you have the best build up ever and it's all down on the day what happens. And it is the crowds, like even the Dublin Marathon is just, the 2 times I've done it, it's just been brilliant, just running through all them streets and the different areas of crowds coming out and supporting. And then the finish down into Merrion Square and all, just the buzz was brilliant. So I just like that kind of, it is nice running through city streets, and you know, I think, as I said, I'm smooth on the road. I like the bounce back off the tarmac or whatever. So but the marathon does have a kind of a special atmosphere, them city marathons, and you know, you're getting your drinks tables, and it's a different type of run, as I said, because for a lot of the marathon you're kind of in control. Well, you'd like to be in somewhat control, and then I suppose it depends on how how long you can stay feeling good, but everything then just goes out the window at the end. You're just trying to get to the line. But for a lot of it, if you're feeling good, it is a great feeling. And then if you're feeling good at the end of a marathon, there's nothing better, it's possibly a rare thing to get through a whole marathon and be feeling great at the end. But I've had one or two where I've felt really good finishing, and it's I suppose it's the sense of achievement from it as well. And obviously then I think I'm most suited to it. So it's what I can get the best out of myself. It's where I probably have got the best out of myself with my results, and in world championships, and I know Rio didn't go too well and stuff, but it's probably what I'm best suited to. And especially as I get a bit older, I think for endurance type event like the marathon, you can still be at the top of your game well into your late 30s, and that you can see that from some athletes and even in their 40s and stuff. And whereas opposed, I suppose, to middle distance and stuff, you're not going to have that sharpness as you get older.
You mentioned there about staying in control. The marathon, a lot of it can be mind over body to get through the 26.2 miles. What do you do to keep your mind on the right track to the finish line when the shit hits the fan and the control starts to go? How does Mick Clohisey stay focused on that finish line when he still might have a half marathon to go, or he might be fading with 5 miles to go and his brain is saying, Mick, this isn't going to happen today?
Yeah, no, it's hard to put yourself into that exact moment now, when you're sitting back relaxed. But I suppose it's just the dedication, commitment to your training that you train your mind to work through these kind of periods of, like, every marathon you're going to have a patch where you feel rough, and normally the thing you try to say is this will pass. You could take a turn on a road and all of a sudden you're feeling brutal, and then you turn another corner and I'm actually all right again. It's mad. And you could get a cramp, and it's hard to. I think it's just a discipline of seeing it out. I know Dick Cooper used to have this thing he'd ride on his arm, and it was finish, and then the second thing was finish as fast as you can. And he just had that written on his hand, so it was like he was always going to finish. So little things just to remind yourself to see it out. Now, I've dropped out of one marathon in Seville, an Achilles tendon injury, but I lasted till 20 miles when probably I should have just stepped off earlier. I kept going as long as I could, but then I realized, geez, if I keep going, I could actually seriously injure myself here. So it wasn't nice dropping out. All my other marathons, I've got through them all, and most of them decent, the odd one that hasn't gone to plan. But the mental side of things, it's just a toughness, I suppose, you try and practice as well when in your training runs. I suppose it's like, for triathlon and Ironman as well, like, you just build it up over the period of time, and I suppose it becomes intuitive to yourself that you're just going to do this and you're going to get through it. And somebody just tell yourself the pain is temporary, and it does end. It mightn't seem like it when it could be only at 20 miles, or as you say, at the half marathon, and it's not going well and you've another 13 miles to go. And it can be a slog, but you kind of just, because you've done it in training, you remind yourself, I've done this so many times before and I will get there. And the bad patches, they do pass. You try and flip it on its head and nearly say, geez, I'm enjoying this type of pain. You have to just do little things in your head and try zone out from it as best you can. But like, thankfully, I haven't been, I haven't had any really bad experiences where I've been, falling over or anything. I know Rio, I was sick in the Olympics going into it, and the second half was I was just out of juice, and I knew I'd finish it though. I just jogged it home really because I didn't want to go there and not finish the marathon, so, but yeah, that was like, probably looking back, that was a slog, but it's not as if I was in any real pain or anything. So I suppose you can put it in perspective to other things. And I mean, the marathon, I suppose, if you like yourself, an Ironman is a different ball game totally. A marathon is over a lot quicker than some of them, longer endurance based events. So
it's all relative though. It's all relative for everybody. Yeah. Is there good camaraderie between you and the lads on the start line? Some of the Irish lads, some of the lads that come over, say, for example, in Dublin, or some of the big races. Is there a bit of jostling and a bit of crack, or is it very serious on the start line?
Yeah, like, I suppose before a big race, when you're tuned in, you don't really want to you're always that bit nervous, which is good in a way, but and you tend not to want to be having too much crack. You know, you can obviously, if you know a few of the Irish lads, you know, you'll have a bit of crack just to lighten the mood a bit. International wise, you know, you don't really like the races I've done internationally. You wouldn't really know them, so you wouldn't be saying much. And I think the Irish are probably better at being a bit more lighthearted anyway. Before, you know, events, having a bit of banter or whatever. But yeah, there'd be a bit of it. But then in your own way, you just want to try and stay as focused as you can. And everyone's in their own head, I suppose. So, you know, sometimes you might crack a few jokes just to lighten the mood. But I think you're so just focused on trying to get started, and everyone's kind of zoned out from what's going on around them. And you kind of don't want too many distractions. But the thing with before a marathon is I'd find myself a lot more relaxed before a marathon than I would for a fast 10K, because, you know, in 10K, you're going to be straight into it. And an example is the Raheny 5 race, which is the big club race in Raheny, which has become one of the biggest road races in the country, and actually like one of the top 5 milers around. And I've won it a few times and a few second places, but I'd nearly be few of the times gone into that, I've been more nervous before that, because it's kind of an expectation. It's a home crowd, and it's just, especially if coming from marathon training, it's just flat out from the start. And like, you kind of know you're going to hurt from the start in that out of my comfort zone, but it's over quick, obviously. But it's a different type of feeling to a marathon, where you know that in a marathon you can kind of be quite relaxed for the first few miles, and then it starts, you know. So I do find I'm more relaxed before marathons than a shorter distance race. And I think it's because I know that I'm more comfortable in a marathon as well. And you know that you're not going to be straight into pure hardship, hanging on kind of stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
And tell me, you mentioned there about expectations of the likes of the club race, the Raheny 5 mile. How do you deal with the pressure going into a race where maybe you're the favourite? Quite often you're the favourite for a race, and maybe you're not feeling the best going into it, but yet everyone has you down as, oh, Mick Clohisey is here now, you know, the race favourites here. Like, how do you personally deal with that kind of pressure? Or do you just let it go? Do you just say, I'm here, I can only do what I can do? Or do you rise to the performance that you need to do to deliver on the day?
Because I've put myself out in a lot of races over the years, and I think since it's probably gone back before the injury, and before the pandemic and stuff, and, you know, I suppose at my top of my game there, and I'd kind of put myself out in a lot of races where, you know, I could have just maybe stayed training in a marathon block, but any race I turn up at, then I kind of feel I have to perform, and it does put an extra pressure on. But it's only in my own head, the pressure. Like, you know, people understand as well if you don't live, you know, because they say, oh, he's training for a marathon. But the thing, I hate, if you underperform, you don't like making excuses, because it's just the nature of the sport. But you can't hide. It's like a lot of the individual sports. But it does put that added pressure, and especially in, as I say, like the Raheny 5 over the years, where I know I'm going into it, I might be in a marathon training block, and I know there's guys here who are going to push you right to the line, and you're going to feel out of your comfort zone, and you feel that kind of pressure building. But it's all in your own head and your nerves, and, you know, trips to the bathroom or whatever beforehand. But it's part of it, gets you into that zone as well, because if you're too relaxed, you know, and maybe people probably see me thinking, geez, Mick's very relaxed. It's probably just the persona that I, you know, show or whatever, but deep behind it all, I'm probably like, you know, I'm kind of right, I just want to get into this now, get this done. Kind of like some of them races, just want to get them done, you know, and then it's a relief after. It's like, and even though you know, it's what you do and what I love to do, sometimes you're just like, oh, I'm so glad that's done now, I can relax, you know.
And then what do you do to relax? Like, away from running, you've your wife Crona and baby Paul. Well, we can't call him a baby anymore because he's running rings around you at 2. There's another baby on the way due in July. So what do you do to relax and to enjoy life away from running?
Yeah, so as you're saying there, like, I seem to be able to zone in and out of running, and I think it's good because as I have my own coaching business now, I'm kind of you know, running is every day, and I'm, you know, texting people or emailing or whatever, and then of my group. So, you know, there's a lot of running related stuff going on. And I wouldn't be an anorak of following elite athletics really. Like, I'd have an idea what's going on, but I wouldn't be one for sitting down and watching the meets that are on, or like I do watch the odd bit of stuff, and I'd have a fair idea what's happening, but I wouldn't be. I kind of like to zone out from it as well. And as I say, little Paul keeps me busy, and like I love being outdoors for nearly all the time, and I love dipping in the sea or whatever, and or being up in St. Anne's Park with Paul. And I don't know how many coffees I go for per day. There's a lot of coffee consumed in different places around. So I do like kind of just chilling out, and I like the kind of outdoor life. Even at the weekend, I was in Leitrim. My wife's family are from down there, and climbed a bit of Slieve on Éireann, which is a kind of well-known mountain down there. So just doing stuff like that. But I'd be big into music also. My dad is a musician, so I grew up listening to a lot of music. So I'd have a keen interest in that kind of side of things as well. And, I could zone out reading about musicians. And I'd more be into reading books about musicians than runners, that kind of way,
I thought you were going to tell me that you'd break into song and we might get a rendition of Raglan Road or something on the podcast. I'm
not sure about that now. Luke Kelly now, but I do hope to try and get a bit more efficient with the guitar, but I'm really at basic level with that. But it is something that I'm interested in, and a bit of art as well. My sister's an artist, so I do the odd bit of paint, which I haven't in a while. These are things that I want to get back into eventually. So I do have a lot of other interests outside of running, but I love all sports. Like, I mean, I'd follow the Gaelic Championship starting up now, and I follow soccer. Shelburne in the League of Ireland, I'm hoping to get little Paul to start going down to them matches again now that they're back in the Premier Division for now. So I love sport in general as well. So, but I do like to zone out from.
I'm holding on to the fact that you like getting into the sea in Portmarnock, and that you like running, obviously. So, and that you like coffee. So you already have 3 of the components that we need to turn you into a triathlete, and we just need to get you a bike. And I wonder, would we get you doing a triathlon in the park?
My dips in the sea are not, they're literally dipping myself in and out. I think the swimming would be definitely something I'd seriously have to work on. I can swim, but I would not be a strong, swimmer doing lengths up and down. Like maybe on the bike, I might be half okay, but I think there's a big difference in the swimming fitness and running fitness, as you probably know yourself. But I just love jumping in the sea and just that feeling of it. And no matter where you are, especially out on the west coast or whatever, like there's always that thing, you have to get a dip in somewhere, that kind of way.
Yeah.
No matter what the weather is,
Yeah.
Sure, we wouldn't get at and done, if you were dependent on that. But it's always, wherever you are, you say, I will try and get a dip in here or whatever, it's part of it. I've kind of grown up with that through my dad as well. He's always been. So it's kind of a nice thing, especially when you're on holiday or something. Even just jumping in the sea for a minute or two, it's kind of a sense that you've done something, I don't know, and then you can go and have your coffee or your
ice cream,
your nice bowl of soup and a pint of stout.
Yeah. And tell me, is your dad still running?
He is. He actually ran on Monday there in the 10-mile race. He's 68 now, so yeah, he still runs. He does triathlons as well himself, so he's down to do a tie. I might try and get down to support him, because he's come to all my races. So I'd like to go down, and I'll be watching. I definitely won't be competing, but yeah. So he's still, like, running would be his main of the 3 disciplines. But he swims regularly. Like I think today he was in Markovic swimming bats in city centre here, and he'd be out on the bike every weekend as well. So yeah, he keeps fit.
Good stuff. Talk to me briefly about being part of Raheny Shamrocks Athletics Club, and the importance as well of, say, the coaching group for camaraderie and support as a runner, because similar to triathlon, it's a very individual sport. Running is a very individual sport as well. You're not relying on anybody else other than yourself to get to the start line and the finish line. But I imagine at times it can be quite lonely when you're training at your level. So having the support of the likes of your athletics club, and then also for your own runners that are being coached by you, having the camaraderie of your club as well and your coach groups must be hugely important for not only for you, but also for the other athletes that are part of both communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my own training, I do a lot of it on my own, and it's just the way it's kind of turned out over the years. I trained a lot with Sean Heher for a while. He's well known in athletics and marathon running scene, and me and Sean have been great training partners through the years. Now he's relocated down to Wexford, so we wouldn't link in as much. And I've dipped in with some of the other athletes as well. And I suppose it's hard when you're at different levels, and marathon running as well. I do a lot. I do like to train on my own a lot as well. But when I can, I'd meet people every now and then. But Raheny is it's a great club of it's a real like a lot of all athletics clubs and triathlon clubs, like inclusive for everyone, and welcoming new people all the time. And I've kind of, I suppose, my own coaching is kind of independent of Raheny, but I suppose 80-90% of the people that come to my groups are in Raheny, so it is kind of a separate break off to it. But I love the being with people, especially when I absolutely love coaching. My groups, like tomorrow morning now, I'll have them in St. Anne's, and we go for coffee afterwards, and it's a great group of people, and I really enjoy that, and I've grown to love that over the last few years. And it's a nice break from my own training, helping people, especially even there was a couple of people running the Boston Marathon. It's just great seeing people achieving stuff as well and helping them along. So, and it distracts me from thinking about my own training, which I don't think I do anyway. I overdo it, but yeah, it's great. And Raheny is such a well-known club now, and I think you might have heard of Pat Hooper, who was a massive part of the club, passed away, God rest, a year and a half ago. He was a big loss to the club because he was epitomized the whole club. So I suppose there's a void there in Raheny, but there's people stepping in, and there's even that race there on Monday, the Battle of Clontarf, and there's so many people out stewarding and helping, and it is great. I suppose you'd probably really appreciate if you're away from something like that and come back to it and see all these people. If you had to spend time abroad, you really realize how you miss the faces. So it is a great thing to have in as you say, an individual type sport, to have the people there around you, and you mightn't necessarily always train together, but just to have them people that you can whatever, have a coffee or go for an easy run here and there. So it's all part of it.
You've mentioned three people, your dad, Pat, and Dick Hooper, who seem to have had a big influence on your running career. Would you say they have been the three most influential people in your career, or would there have been others outside of that maybe would have influenced decisions to step up to marathon distance?
Yeah, no, I suppose them three would definitely be, like, I suppose Dick has kind of coached me now. It's kind of, at the moment, we're kind of a two-way kind of correspondence with each other, but over the years, Dick, like, I wouldn't be where I was without Dick's guidance and his disciplined approach to, he's a hard taskmaster type kind of thing, and we've kind of learned how to work with each other, different personalities, but he has been an absolutely massive part of, especially in moving up to the marathon. And my dad as well has always encouraged me right from the start. When I used to play football and stuff, my dad would never tell me to rush into solely focusing on running, and I've always kind of listened to my dad, and he's always been there, if someone I really need to ask any, little things, like whatever. And then Pat, he was just, I suppose he just was part of Raheny Shamrocks, and he was just so full of encouragement. And characters like that are, I suppose they're really hard to find. Well, they're not hard to find. They're in every club, but when they're gone, you realize how big a part they played. And another person is my uncle, has been a massive supporter of me, over the years. My dad's brother, he's helped me with sponsorship and stuff, and come to every race, a big race as well. So, there's different, and obviously my wife then as well. I can't not mention her. She's a big supporter. So there's plenty of people there, but, there are people that stand out. And, if you go through the list, there'll be probably other people I realize, that person had a massive part to play in this. So, but it's nice to have characters like that, because you learn stuff from them that you can then pass on, I suppose, to other people. It's, that's kind of how it works, isn't it? You pick up stuff and pass it on.
You are the two-time national marathon champion. First time in 2018 in Dublin, second time 2021 in Belfast. So you are now the defending national marathon champion going into Dublin in October of this year. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, well, it's nice to be like the national marathon last year. Obviously, was in Belfast, because of the pandemic and that there was no Dublin, didn't happen. So it was kind of a late call to move it to Belfast. And I was originally down to do the London Marathon, but as I was saying, I had injury issues. I just wasn't going to be fit enough, I don't think, to really run fast and strong. And then Belfast came on the, on the horizon with the national. I couldn't turn it down then. And as it turned out, I won Belfast outright. So that's, it's hard to get that opportunity to win a marathon because there was none of the Africans there and no other kind of top Europeans and stuff. So it is a rare thing to get that chance. So I'm glad I took it because I might never win a marathon outright again because it is very hard to, like Dublin now in October, I'm sure there'll be a fair few Africans over and, top Europeans, Americans. So it's very hard to try and win a marathon outright. So going into Dublin, the national will be the main aim, as that's a part of it. But I want to try and finish as high up. I finished 6th in Dublin twice. The 2 times I've ran Dublin, I finished 6th overall. I won the national once and 2nd in the national the next time. So I'd like to try and finish as high up and hopefully run a bit quicker than I have as well if I can. But I look forward to it because, as I said, Dublin overall, the marathons I've done, it's probably been the most memorable and just the buzz of it and the hometown, I suppose. So I think a lot of people around the country will be really looking forward to Dublin when it comes back because it's grown to be like a real buzz of a marathon, and it's especially now the race series is back through the summer as well. So there's that build up into it, and so I think a lot of people will be looking forward to the end of October.
Absolutely. I guess Dublin, maybe Belfast might be a couple of the highlights of your career to date, but where would the lowlights be?
Yeah, so winning Belfast was great. I think the London World Championships was another highlight in 2017 because it was the year after the disappointment in Rio. And I went to London and finished 22nd. And it was the Irish support that year in London. It was a lapped course in London. It was like a hometown race. So that was just brilliant. And I kind of felt I'd redeemed myself, kind of come back after the disappointment of Rio. So that was a really enjoyable experience. And then obviously the 2 times in Dublin were great. Low light, like obviously performance wise, Rio, the Olympics, I didn't perform, but
I think that was a bit out of your control though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it was like I was frustrated in that at the time and the Olympics, but I didn't dwell on it. I switched off for a while after it and just kind of, it was the Olympics, obviously you want to go and perform. But when I look back on it, I'll still think I finished it out. I had issues that I couldn't, I had a blister and then I got sick or whatever. But look, these are things that probably could have prevented it. But, when at the time, it was what it was. So I think I'll look back and be proud that I finished it out and I was there and, but yeah, I wouldn't, there's been races where I've been disappointed and I wouldn't count too many real lowlights, I think, and you have disappointments and you just kind of move on. I've never been one for dwelling too much on bad performances. Look, you do feel annoyed and frustrated. And I think if it didn't mean something, you wouldn't, if you didn't feel that, there'd be something wrong because it obviously you're not that bothered about it. So it's good to have that bit of it, but I wouldn't go away sulking for, you get on with it.
You deal with the disappointment and move on.
It's always great, your next race, then you feel, right, I'm going to come out and get myself back. And then, if you have a bad marathon and then, you take your break, come back, and then you start with some shorter races, it kind of banishes it then if you get back to having some good runs. So, no, I've been lucky that I haven't had too many real bad kind of experiences. Good. Like dropping out at Seville Marathon was one I didn't enjoy, but I had no option either with injury. So I've been very lucky through the career.
Well, Mick, it's almost time to end the podcast episode, but we did get a couple of questions in now. We also had somebody comment saying they didn't want to ask a question, but they wanted me to tell you that you're a total legend. And can I remember who that was? I absolutely can't, but I wanted to tell you on their behalf that you're a total legend.
No,
and then the dad runner on Instagram, he asks, can Mick make another Olympics? Can he make the qualifying time for one? And can he take one of the spots from the current and upcoming guys like Scullion, Pollock, Seward, Flynn, Tobin, to name a few? So there's a loaded question for you to round out the episode.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It will be tough to try and make the next Olympics because the qualification time has gotten a lot harder. I haven't reached that particular, that level yet. Now, I was, before getting injured, hoping I would get close to it. and then things didn't work out. But I definitely think if I can progress in the next year or so, if I can get myself back up to where I was, I'll do my best to try and aim to be close to getting there. Now there's the three, I suppose there's a few guys like Scully and Kevin Seward and Paul Pollock who have been around all the way up through. Kevin Seward and Paul Pollock were in Rio with me, and they've been around all the way. And there's other guys possibly moving up who haven't really yet, so we don't know. And there's Hugh Armstrong, who's there, and he's very strong. But look, I'll put myself as best I can in the contention. It will be very hard to make the Olympics again, but I wouldn't rule anything out. But you never know. But then my main aim is to get back on track and progress as best I can. And there's also, I know this summer mightn't be European or Worlds that I will make, but they are great events as well. So I do feel I can get another good few years and I can progress to try and kind of push myself close to getting there. But it will be tough, but sure, that's the challenge.
Well, you wouldn't be a national marathon champion by 2 if you weren't embracing things that were tough in sport. So Mick, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I hope to see you at the finish line very soon. And sure, maybe somebody will give you a bike, i.e. your dad, and you might end up down doing Triathlon in June for the crack.
Oh yeah, definitely have to get a few lengths of the pool and definitely before that.
Thanks
very much. Thanks,
Mick. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. Pop by and say hi and let me know what you think of the show. If you are new to Try Talking Sport, please do check out some of our previous episodes. You will be both impressed and inspired by our guests. Finally, be sure to sign up to our new e-zine featuring articles of interest, some great discounts and the inside track on supporting your triathlon and endurance sport journey wherever it may take you. Sign up on www.trytalkingsport.com. It takes 30 seconds and I promise I won't bombard your inbox with emails, just the important stuff. Until next time, stay safe, keep smiling and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.